tell me a little bit about how Hard Eyes kind of came to fruition. Like how long ago you had this first idea for the movie, how long you've been working on it, and kind of what that whole pre-production process looked like for you.
The From the moment I pitched on it to win the job, to really to get the job, to its release on February 7th, it will be j 1 week shy of a year.
Okay.
So I pitched on it on Valentine's Day to the studio, and it's coming out a week shy of Valentine's Day, a year later, which is shy of a year later, which is wild.
Yeah.
Um, Michael Kennedy slipped it to me. He said, Chris Landon and I are working on this script. We think you'd be great for it. I had a little bit of anxiety about helming something that was not only scary, but also romantic because you have to commit to both genres. I wanted to do something darker and bloodier and scarier compared to what I've done previously. I didn't want it to be like another, you know, horror comedy or something necessarily perceived to be. I wanted to do something far more horror leaning. But once I realized this was an opportunity for, to cast two actors to play characters you really care about, I realized the romantic stuff is really how we lull the audiences into a sense of complacency before Hard Eyes scares the shit out of us.
Sure. No, and that works so well. It's yeah, I mean, in the back of your mind, you're like, this is a murder mystery. I don't know who the killer is. But then their chemistry is so good, and like the romance actually like has an effect, and you kind of forget about the killer for a minute. I loved that about
Yeah.
the movie.
Yeah, awesome. Awesome.
Josh, I'm also such a huge fan of your previous work. I love Scare Me so much. I watch that every Halloween since it's come out. I just think
Oh,
it's great.
oh man.
And Werewolves Within is also so much fun. I'm just kind of curious how working on Hard Eyes compares to something like Scare Me. Just because Scare Me is such a small, intimate film where it's just you, Aya Cash, and Chris Red hanging out in a cabin for 90 minutes. Is Hard Eyes like I mean, it's bigger, but is it like harder to kind of put it all together? Is it more collaborative and more people involved?
There's definitely more people involved by nature of the size of the thing and the amount of creators on it. You have to be collaborative. It's a different kind of form of collaboration. There's no way I prefer to work other than to be collaborative with every department and to have everyone just kind of best idea wins it to make the thing the best thing possible. Scare Me was a true example of no one cares more than you, which is what they constantly tell the director. No one's gonna care more than you about the sound design, about the performances, about the poster, this, that, and the other thing. And so much kind of fell on me. And Brendan Banks, who was my co-producer, my DP, essentially my appendage on that film.
Sure.
Here you have so many departments, so dedicated, so talented. It's the same thing with more resources. And the fact that everyone was just so down and so on the same page, and willing to bring what was on the page and what was in my imagination to life was wild. I just never had these kind of resources before. I'm an independent filmmaker.
Mm. Sure. I'm sure that was a big step up, but again, it all turned out so well. You crushed it. So it's awesome. And Hard Eyes is obviously part of kind of the holiday horror subgenre, which is a great little niche to be in, first of all. Um, but I just kind of have a chicken and egg kind of question for you. Is when you were coming up with the idea for Hard Eyes, were you first like, I want to do a slasher movie, or were you more just like, I want to do something based around Valentine's Day and kind of work from there?
Well, I didn't come up with the idea. It was actually originally Philip Murphy wrote the kind of original iteration of the script, the true slasher, and then Michael Kennedy and Chris Lanning came aboard to sort of put their stamp on it to make it a bit more fun, a bit more commercial, a bit more the type of film you want to bring like 10 buddies to. So still maintaining the gore and the slasherness of it all, but really kind of, pushing it even further. So, when I got it, I absolutely. I've always kind of been like, man, if only I can take my swing at Scream or a slasher. And just because I grew up loving films like Jason Lives and Scream is one of, two of my favorite examples. So I don't know, this was an opportunity to tap into the piece of myself that just adores those genres and just to kind of floor it.
Sure. No, totally. Totally. And kind of sticking with the holiday horror thing, I mean, there's obviously been some classics way back when, like, well, not way back when, but Halloween, Black Christmas, that kind of thing. But having said that, it also kind of feels like there's a recent rise in popularity too. I mean, I'm thinking like Eli Roth
Hmm.
Thanksgiving or Terrifier 3 or It's a Wonderful Knife, stuff like that. And I mean, holiday horror movies have been around for a long time, but do you think that there's been kind of a rise in interest in this subgenre? And do you think there's like a specific reason for that?
Well, I think there's always going to be an interest and a love and adoration for the genre because people love the experience of watching ordinary folks survive extraordinary circumstances. I mean, that's like a tale as old as time. That's why we love going to the movies. And the world is so filled with horrors at every turn and at every moment and every time you even think about turning on the news. So that's why there's a desire for genre in general. That's why there's a place for things like Terrifier, which I'm too much of a chicken to see, and stuff like Hard Eyes, which I'm in the business of making escapism. I love true escapist fun horror that you can fun genre really that you want to bring 10 friends to that maybe your older friends will enjoy just as much as your like younger niece or nephew who's just
Sure.
super into horror as I was as a kid.
Yeah. No, sure. That makes total sense. It's a great slumber party movie too, just when it's obviously
Yes,
going
that's
with.
what you want. That's what you want. Folks are just getting uh, we continually loud these horror icons every Halloween, Candyman, Freddy, Pinhead, Michael Myers, Jason, and any kind of opportunity, any risk a studio is willing to take to bring a new icon or just like take a swing at a new face in the genre is massive because we need it and we love it and folks like new stuff and that's why this whole process has been such a privilege and I hope to high heaven it works.
Oh yeah. Yeah, totally. That's right what I was going to ask you about now too, because Hard Eyes immediately in my mind becomes a new kind of slasher icon just because I mean it has a Jason tone, but the look of it's so distinct. I'm just kind of curious what it was like bringing that to light because it's simple, but yet also like the actual Hard Eyes are so effective. How did that process work from your end?
It was honestly Chris Landon roping in Tony Gardner, the legendary makeup effects artist from the beginning. Him and his partner Brian Christensen at Alterian, they started presenting renders of their interpretations of the most wicked, twisted version of like a heart eyes emoji, essentially, which was the furthest thing we wanted to present on screen. And so we had just about every iteration you can imagine. They do these brilliant 3D renders, uh, with what's the word like anatomical dimensions, like just kind of accurate to a certain, shape and size of a stunt person. And they do little 3D models and molds and I mean, we had every different possible iteration you can imagine from something that was like essentially the heart-eyed version of the Jason mask to, a minor homage from 1981's My Bloody Valentine.
Sure.
And once we landed on this face and we added the kind of aging texture to it, the fact that it doesn't look new, that it looks older, that it's, potentially seen things before and gets your kind of, blood chill to the prospect. That's when we knew we were onto something. But working with Tony and Brian was amazing. I mean, Tony Gardner worked on Darkman, which is, that's like the be all end all for me.
Awesome movie. Totally.
Hmm.
No, that's great. That's so cool. Regarding kind of the gore and the death scenes, I wanted to ask you about that too, because I thought you hit just the right level where, again, it's not Terrifier. I'm not vomiting while watching this, but it's also like, you have some really good kills in there. I especially like the one, like the very first one. That sequence was just so much fun and so funny too.
Oh,
Um,
thank you.
so out of kind of all the kills in this movie, was there one that was like the most challenging to film and shoot and create?
I think the most challenging to surmount was the drive-in. It originally was not a drive-in massacre. You know, Hard Eyes was very focused on Allie and Jay and just chasing that couple, and we realized, well, Hard Eyes just landed at this drive-in on Valentine's Day. It's probably this like smorgasbord, this buffet
Yeah.
of couples. So it's the most appealing of of kill landscape, and it was an addition. It was kind of an addition on the fly to go, what if he killed a bunch of people, you know, as opposed to this one hippie van, this one hippie couple in the van, and then just kind of going after Jay and Allie. And so, you know, it was kind of wild, and my crew was definitely nervous at the prospect of the director kind of going, yeah, what other who else can we kill? What else can we do? And that's just testament to like Steve McQuillan, to my my stunt coordinator, who just finished up work on Wolfman and who did Borderlands. Who's just like a master in his own right, just kind of being willing and down, his whole crew being willing and down to just get creative and blow this sequence out. It was tough. We did, you know, we had several meetings about it. We did top shop models with cars and, you know, many discussions. But, you know, once we were just kind of once we were there and we knew we had, I think, 4 or 5 days to do the whole sequence, plus the kind of bookending scenes,
Mhm.
with some wraparound stuff in studio, it became, I don't know, I don't want to say easier, but it became more manageable.
Sure.
Once you just chip away at it like you would anything.
Sure. I'm sure, yeah. Watching it all kind of come together, I'm sure helps it be more practical. So that makes
Hmm.
a lot of sense. Um, I gotta say, the cast that you've assembled for Hard Eyes is pretty incredible. I've been a fan of Mason Gooding over the past couple of years, just seeing him like in the Scream movies in Booksmart, and yeah, he's great. Olivia Holt is also a lot of fun. So I'm just kind of wondering, tell me a little bit about kind of exploring those characters and working with those actors in regards to their romantic chemistry. Was there kind of were you working with them a lot to kind of figure out how they should interact with each other, or did they just like immediately get it?
I think I want to say they immediately got it, but really what they immediately had was chemistry. They were instant friends. The chemistry, which you don't always have, you know, the chemistry like leaps off the screen. And they're both just great people who were very willing and down and wanted to make this the best thing they could, because these are two of their, not their first leading roles, but this is a big deal for them, you know. Leading roles in a studio film doesn't, you know, it's not an opportunity that comes quite often. So we met frequently. We'd usually meet on the weekends just to kind of talk, mainly to talk about an anchor scene of the two characters kind of, you know, butting heads at in this restaurant. And we would just talk. We'd talk about our own relationships. We would very casually read that one scene. We had a couple of other rehearsals where we read through other scenes with other actors, but that was the main one we keep coming back to because, you know, if they just kind of did their thing and just followed their instincts, um, uh, branched out from that scene, we were golden. But their scene in the restaurant was was certainly the most complex and offered the most about the psychology of their characters next to the one in the van.
Totally. Totally. It's a fun scene too. So many twists and turns and watching it all play out. It's so fun. Another person I love is Devon Sawa in this movie, which he's
Uh,
created such a name for himself in horror, just seeing him in like Chucky and Hunter x Hunter. And here he gets to be like funny, like really funny.
hmm
Which was
hmm
great to see. What was it kind of like working with him on this?
Phenomenal. I've wanted to work with him since he and I were just kind of fanning over each other and you know on Instagram. I knew he was a great dude. I knew he was committed, and I also it certainly didn't hurt that I grew up watching him and loved everything that he was in. I mean, we had the pleasure of having the Hollywood Avondale, this brilliant theater down in Auckland, host us for a Q&A and a screening of Final Destination, which he hadn't seen in several years. He doesn't particularly, so he says, love watching his stuff and or revisiting his, his work from his younger years. And he was down not only to watch with this like brilliant, warm crowd, but also just to answer questions about his performance and what that experience was like. I mean, and the movie rips, and his performance is really tour de force. I mean, legitimately, it's one of the best genre films of the past, 20 years. It really slaps. There's a reason why there's, whatever part 6 now coming up.
Yeah. Makes sense. But yeah, no, that's awesome. So I don't want to spoil anything, but Hard Eyes does have kind of the murder mystery aspect of it, of who's behind the mask.
Mhm.
And I just think it's cool how you went from Werewolves Within to this, which Werewolves Within also has the kind of murder mystery aspect. I'm just kind of wondering if there was like one you kind of prefer, just because Werewolves Within is set in like a small town. It's, I mean, got a tone where whenever someone dies, you immediately like feel it because there's only so many cast of characters and everything. And Hard Eyes is like set in all Seattle, so the killer can kill as many people as he wants throughout this whole city. So do you like playing more kind of in the big open space like a city in Seattle, or do you prefer kind of the quiet, more subdued murder mystery of Werewolves Within?
I don't know. I really enjoyed shooting this city, shooting Auckland for Seattle. And I desperately love small town imagery. I'm probably more drawn to the small town imagery because, as you can see, I mean, my first two films took place in upstate New York.
Mhm.
I'm from there. I understand it. I played in those woods. I, scared myself with, stories of monsters in those shadows and such. And I've got a real nostalgic affinity for it. I'm now watching Severance. Um, I
Hmm.
rewatched season one and I'm into season two now, which is great. And to see the Hudson Valley filmed like that once again through the lens of genre is just like, I'm aching for it. I would love to go back. I think the dream would be able to take like a genre TV show up there and to just employ um the wonderful crew members who live up there and just do something kind of fun back home. But I don't know. I love it all, and I'm open to all. I do stuff on a submarine or the spaceship. I mean, as long as the story's good.
Sure. No, that makes total sense. Leads into what I was going to ask you next too is, yeah, in murder mystery, kind of the same vein as Scream. You eventually learn who's behind the mask, but that doesn't mean there can't be more killers sometime in the future. So, is continuing Hard Eyes with a potential sequel something you would be interested in, or is this kind of a one and done for you?
I would love to do a part two. There's always more you can do. There's certainly more I pitched for Hard Eyes to do and to be.
Hmm.
There's plenty more places for the character arcs and the characters to go. So yeah, if it's ever on the table, I will be there. Would
Sure.
love to.
And I will be there opening night to see it. Absolutely.